The snow outside the Moretti estate wasn't just cold, it was a death sentence. While the most dangerous crime family in New York feasted on roast duck and vintage wine inside a girl was freezing to death in their garden. She wasn't an enemy. She wasn't a spy. She was the maid who had poured their wine only an hour before. Lorenzo Moretti, the capo of the family, thought he had seen every kind of cruelty imaginable. But when he stepped out for a smoke and saw a trembling hand reaching out from a snowbank, the king of the underworld didn't just get angry. He declared war on his own household. Tonight, the snow would melt, but the blood would stain the floor forever. The grandfather clock in the hallway chimed 8 times, the sound echoing through the massive marble foyer of the Moretti estate like a judge's gavel. Elara Vance smoothed the front of her black uniform, her hands trembling. It wasn't from the cold, not yet, but from the sheer suffocating terror of working Christmas dinner for the Moretti crime family. "More wine, girl. Are you deaf?" The voice snapped like a whip. Elara flinched, keeping her eyes lowered as she moved toward the head of the table. Camilla Rossi sat there looking like a queen in blood-red silk. She was the daughter of the Chicago outfit, currently engaged to be married to the man at the other end of the table. Elara poured the Pinot Noir, careful not to let a single drop hit the white tablecloth. "Thank you, Elara," a deep, gravelly voice rumbled from the far end. Elara froze. Lorenzo Moretti rarely spoke to the help. He was a man of silence, a predator who ruled the eastern seaboard with a stare that could freeze hell over. He was 32, devastatingly handsome in a way that warned you to stay away and terrified Elara more than anyone. She risked a glance. Lorenzo was watching her. His dark eyes, usually void of emotion, were narrowed slightly as they tracked her trembling hand. "Don't speak to the help, Lorenzo. It gives them ideas." Camilla laughed, the sound sharp and brittle. She took a sip of her wine, and then with a deliberate flick of her wrist, she knocked her heavy silver napkin ring onto the floor. Elara immediately dropped to her knees to retrieve it. "Oh, clumsy me," Camilla said, her voice dripping with faux sweetness. She leaned down, whispering so only Elara could hear. "I saw him looking at you. Do you think because you have pretty eyes you matter? You're a rat in a house of lions." Elara grabbed the ring and stood up, her face burning. "I apologize, Miss Rossi." "Actually," Camilla said loudly, silencing the table of 12 lieutenants and captains, "I seem to have lost my diamond drop earring, the one Lorenzo gave me." Lorenzo didn't look up from his steak. "I didn't give you earrings, Camilla. I gave you a necklace." Camilla's smile didn't falter. "The other pair. I think I dropped it when I was smoking on the West Terrace earlier." "Elara, go find it." Elara looked towards the window. The blizzard outside was raging. It was a whiteout, the wind howling at 50 miles per hour. The temperature had dropped to 5 degrees below zero. "Miss Rossi," Elara whispered, "the West Terrace hasn't been shoveled. The snow is waist deep. I can look in the morning. I want to wear them for the toast at midnight." Camilla snapped her eyes, flashing with malice. "Go. Now. Or do I need to tell the staff manager that you're stealing?" Elara felt the blood drain from her face. If she was fired, she lost her room in the servants' quarters. If she lost her room, she was back on the streets where her father's gambling debts were waiting for her in the form of loan sharks who broke kneecaps for sport. She looked at Lorenzo. He was engaged in a quiet conversation with his consigliere, Stefano, and wasn't paying attention. No one would save her. "Yes, miss," Elara said softly. She retreated to the kitchen. The warmth of the ovens felt like a goodbye. "Where are you going?" Marco, the old cook, asked as she headed for the back door. "Miss Rossi lost an earring on the terrace." "In this weather, you need a coat," Marco shouted, reaching for his own oversized parka. "No time," Elara said, panic rising in her chest. She grabbed a thin wool shawl from the hook, her only personal item, and wrapped it around her shoulders. "If I'm not back in 10 minutes, she'll fire me." Elara pushed open the heavy oak door and was immediately assaulted. The wind hit her like a physical blow, knocking the breath from her lungs. The cold was instant, biting through her thin maid's uniform, like needles. She stepped out into the dark. The terrace lights were buried under drifts. She fell to her knees, the snow instantly soaking her stockings, freezing her skin. Just find it, and go back in. She began to crawl, sifting through the icy powder with bare hands. 1 minute passed, then 2. Her fingers went from stinging to burning, then to a numb, clumsy heaviness. The wind screamed, tearing the shawl from her shoulders and blowing it into the darkness. "No!" she cried, her voice swallowed by the storm. She couldn't feel her feet anymore. She was disoriented. Which way was the door? The snow was swirling so hard she couldn't see the lights of the house, even though she was only 20 feet away. She crawled in what she thought was the right direction, but her hand hit a stone balustrade. Wrong way. She turned, panic setting in. Her body began to shake violently. Her vision blurred. The cold was no longer painful. It was making her sleepy. It felt like a heavy, warm blanket, urging her to lay down. "I'll just rest for a second," she thought, curling into a ball near the stone railing. Just a second. Inside the dining room, the fire roared and the wine flowed. Outside, Elara Vance closed her eyes, the snow rapidly covering her small form, burying her alive, while the man she feared and admired sat just through the glass, unaware he was about to lose the only innocent thing left in his world. Lorenzo Moretti was bored. He swirled the amber liquid in his glass, tuning out the sycophantic laughter of his underbosses. He hated Christmas. He hated the pretense of holiness when everyone at this table had blood under their fingernails. But mostly he hated the arrangement with Camilla. It was a business merger, nothing more. Her father controlled the shipping routes in Chicago. Lorenzo controlled the ports in New York. A marriage cemented the alliance. But Camilla was cruel. He had seen the way she treated the staff, the way she sneered at anyone she deemed beneath her. Lorenzo's eyes drifted to the spot where the little maid had been standing. Elara. He knew her name. He knew she had been working here for 6 months. He knew she sent half her paycheck to a hidden account to pay off a debt that wasn't hers. He made it his business to know everything about everyone under his roof. But she was gone. She had been gone for a while. "Where is the girl?" Lorenzo asked, his voice cutting through the chatter. Camilla paused, a forkful of potato halfway to her mouth. "Who?" "The maid." "Elara," Lorenzo said. "We need more wine. She's been in the kitchen for 20 minutes. "Oh, she's not in the kitchen," Camilla said dismissively. "I sent her on an errand." Lorenzo placed his glass down. The heavy crystal made a dull thud against the wood. The table went silent. When the boss stopped drinking, everyone stopped breathing. "An errand," Lorenzo repeated, his voice dangerously low. "It is 11 at night. We are in the middle of a blizzard that has grounded flights, Camilla. What errand?" Camilla rolled her eyes, clearly annoyed that he cared. "She's just outside looking for my earring, on the terrace." Lorenzo stared at her, For a moment, his brain refused to process the idiocy of the statement. Outside. Yes, don't be dramatic, Lorenzo. It's just a little snow. Lorenzo stood up. The movement was so abrupt that his heavy chair screeched backward and toppled over. Stefano! Lorenzo barked at his consigliere. The exterior temperature. Stefano checked his watch immediately. Current reading is -8 boss, with wind chill -20. Lorenzo looked at Camilla. His eyes, usually cold, were now blazing with a fire that promised violence. How long has she been out there? Camilla faltered, shrinking back into her seat. I don't know. Maybe 20 minutes, 30. 30 minutes, Lorenzo roared. The sound was terrifying, a raw, primal eclosion of rage that made the seasoned killers at the table jump. He didn't say another word. He turned and sprinted. He didn't go to the kitchen. He went straight for the French doors in the dining room that led to the west terrace. He unlocked them and threw them open. The wind hit the dining room like a bomb. Snow blasted inside, extinguishing the candles and sending napkins flying. The guests screamed, shielding their faces. Lorenzo stepped out into the white hell. Elara! He screamed. The wind tore the name from his lips. He couldn't see 3 feet in front of him. He was wearing a 3-piece Italian suit, and the cold bit through it instantly. He couldn't imagine what it was doing to a girl in a polyester uniform. Elara! He waded through the knee-deep drifts. He scanned the terrace, his heart hammering against his ribs in a way it never did during a gunfight. Please let her be alive. Please. He moved toward the edge of the balcony. He saw a shape near the balustrade. It looked like a pile of discarded snow, but the shape was too organic, too curved. Lorenzo lunged forward, falling to his knees in the snow. He dug his hands into the drift and felt fabric. He pulled. A body emerged, limp and frighteningly light. It was her. Her skin was marble white, tinged with a terrifying shade of blue around her lips. Ice had formed on her eyelashes, sealing her eyes shut. She wasn't shivering anymore. That was the worst sign. Elara! Lorenzo roared, pulling her against his chest. She was as cold as the stone railing. He ripped off his suit jacket, not caring about the freezing wind hitting his silk shirt, and wrapped it around her. He scooped her up into his arms, holding her tight against his body heat. She was so small. She felt fragile like a bird with broken wings. Lorenzo turned back toward the house. Through the open doors, the warm light spilled out, framing the silhouette of Camilla, who was standing there with a hand over her mouth. Lorenzo marched back inside, carrying the frozen girl. He stepped onto the expensive Persian rug, snow and ice dripping from his clothes, staining the wool. The room was silent. Every eye was on him. Lorenzo looked at the head of the house staff. Get the doctor. Now if she dies, I kill everyone in this room. He looked down at Elara's face. A single shallow breath escaped her lips, a tiny puff of mist. She was fighting. He looked up at Camilla. Camilla was trembling, but she tried to maintain her composure. Lorenzo, look at the mess. It was just a maid. Stefano, Lorenzo said. His voice was no longer a roar. It was a whisper, dead and flat. Lock the doors. No one leaves this dining room, especially not her. He walked past them, carrying Elara toward the grand fireplace in the living room. The dinner was over. The war had begun. The great hall of the Moretti estate was usually a place of cold formalities, but tonight it was an emergency room. Lorenzo kicked the heavy velvet sofa closer to the roaring fireplace. He laid Alara down her wet uniform, clinging to her skin like a shroud. "Get out!" Lorenzo barked at the lingering guests. "Everyone out, except Stefano. And the doctor." The lieutenants and their wives scrambled for their coats, terrified by the unhinged look in their Don's eyes. Camilla Rossi stood her ground near the doorway, her face pale but her chin high. "You are embarrassing me, Lorenzo," she hissed. "Over a servant." Lorenzo didn't look at her. His hands were busy. He knew the protocol for hypothermia. He had seen men freeze in the Alps during a botched smuggling operation years ago. You couldn't just warm them up. You had to remove the cold first. He reached for the collar of Alara's dress. The cheap polyester was frozen stiff. With a single violent jerk, he ripped the uniform down the middle. "What are you doing?" Camilla shrieked, taking a step forward. "Have you no shame? She is dying, you stupid woman," Lorenzo snarled. He stripped the sodden fabric from Alara's body, leaving her in her simple, threadbare cotton undergarments. Her skin was terrifyingly pale, the veins standing out in stark blue maps across her arms. He grabbed the heavy fur throw from the armchair and wrapped her tightly, cocooning her. Then he did something that made Stefano, his hardened consigliere, widen his eyes. Lorenzo sat on the floor, pulled Alara's frozen body into his lap, and began to rub her arms and legs vigorously, using his own body heat to try and restart her system. "Come on," he whispered against her hair, his voice ragged. "Fight, Alara. You didn't survive the streets to die in my backyard." The front door banged open. Dr. Aris Thorne, the family's private surgeon, rushed in, shaking snow from his coat. He carried a trauma bag. "Status?" Dr. Thorne asked, dropping to his knees beside them. "Pulse is thready. Respiration is shallow. She was out there for 30 minutes at -20 degrees. Lorenzo reported, his hands never stopping their friction against her skin. Dr. Thorne worked quickly. He checked her pupils, then pulled a syringe from his kit. "I'm giving her epinephrine to support her heart and warm saline the 4. We need to get her core temperature up slowly, or she'll go into shock." As the needle pierced Alara's skin, she let out a low, pained moan. Her eyes fluttered but didn't open. "It hurts," she whimpered, her teeth chattering so hard it sounded like bones breaking. "It burns." "That's good," Dr. Thorne said, sweating despite the cold room. "Pain means the nerves are waking up. Keep holding her, Lorenzo. She needs the heat." Lorenzo held her tighter, rocking her slightly. He looked up, his eyes locking onto Camilla, who was still watching with a look of disgust. "Get out of my house," Lorenzo said. The volume was low, but the tone was final. Camilla laughed nervously. "Lorenzo, don't be ridiculous. We're getting married in 3 months. Your father will be lucky if I don't send him your head in a box," Lorenzo said. He stood up slowly, carefully transferring Alara's weight to the sofa. He walked toward Camilla. He towered over her. For the first time, the Ice Queen of Chicago looked small. "You sent a girl to die for an earring," Lorenzo said. "You have no honor. You have no heart. And you will never sit at my table again. You can't do this." Camilla stammered, tears of rage welling in her eyes. "This merges the families. You need the shipping routes." "I'll take the routes by force," Lorenzo said, his voice void of emotion. "Matteo." The head of security stepped forward. "Yes, boss." "Escort Miss Rossi off the property. If she resists, throw her in the snow. Let her see how it feels." "You'll regret this," Camilla screamed as Matteo grabbed her arm. "She's just a maid." "She's nobody." Lorenzo watched until the door slammed shut, sealing the storm outside. He turned back to the fire, to the small, shivering form on his couch. "She's not nobody," Lorenzo muttered to himself. "Not anymore." Elara woke up to the smell of sandalwood and expensive tobacco. She wasn't cold. In fact, she was enveloped in a warmth so luxurious it felt like a sin. She shifted, expecting the lumpy mattress of the servants' quarters and the drafty window. Instead, she felt silk sheets sliding against her skin. Her eyes snapped open. She was in a room she had only ever seen while cleaning it. The master suite. The ceiling was high-painted with Renaissance-style frescoes. The fireplace across the room was lit, casting dancing shadows on the dark mahogany furniture. Panic spiked in her chest. I fell asleep outside. "I'm going to be fired." She tried to sit up, but a wave of dizziness slammed her back down. Her hands and feet throbbed with a dull, aching pulse, the aftermath of the frostbite. "Easy," a voice said from the shadows. Elara gasped, pulling the duvet up to her chin. Lorenzo Moretti was sitting in a leather wingback chair in the corner watching her. He had discarded his suit jacket and tie. His white shirt was unbuttoned at the top, his sleeves rolled up to reveal muscular forearms covered in intricate tattoos. He looked exhausted and dangerous. "Mr. Moretti," Elara croaked. Her throat felt like sandpaper. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to fall asleep. I'll leave immediately." She tried to swing her legs out of bed, but Lorenzo was there in a flash. His hand gently pushed her shoulder back down. "You didn't fall asleep, Elara. You almost died." His hand lingered on her shoulder. His touch was warm, firm, and terrifyingly gentle. "The earring," she whispered. "Did I find it?" Lorenzo's jaw tightened. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, glittering object. He tossed it onto the bedside table. It was the diamond drop earring. "Matteo found it." Lorenzo lied. "It was in Camilla's purse. She never lost it." Elara stared at the earring. The realization hit her slowly like a bruise forming. She knew. "She wanted to hurt you," Lorenzo said bluntly. "Because she saw me looking at you." Elara looked away, shame burning her cheeks. "I am just the help, sir. I'm not worth looking at." Lorenzo reached out, placing a finger under her chin and turning her face back toward him. His eyes searched hers, intense and probing. "You stayed out there," he said softly. "Why didn't you come back in when it got too cold? Why risk your life for a job?" "I couldn't lose this job," Elara said, her voice trembling. "I have obligations." "The debt," Lorenzo said. Elara froze. "How do you know? I know everything that happens in my city," Lorenzo said, stepping back. He walked to the table and poured a glass of water, handing it to her. "You send 70% of your wages to a loan shark named Vinny the Rat Gotti in Queens, your father's debt, correct?" Elara gripped the glass, her knuckles white. "He threatened to burn down my father's nursing home. I had to pay." Lorenzo watched her. Most people in her position would have stolen from him. They would have sold secrets to his enemies. But Elara had quietly worked herself to the bone, taking abuse from women like Camilla, just to protect an old man who had gambled away their future. Loyalty. It was the rarest currency in Lorenzo's world, and this girl had it in her blood. "The debt is gone," Lorenzo said calmly. Elara blinked. "What? Vinny Gotti had a visit from my associates an hour ago. He has decided to forgive the debt and retire to Florida. Permanently." Elara's mouth fell open. Why would you do that? Because you are under my protection now, Lorenzo said, and because I need something from you. Elara's heart hammered. What could the Mafia Don want from a maid? What do you need? She asked, fearing the answer. Lorenzo walked over to a small table near the window. On it sat a beautiful hand-carved marble chess set. The game was in progress. For 3 months, Lorenzo said, staring at the board. I have been playing a game against myself. I leave the board set up in the library. Every morning I make a move, and every evening when I return, someone has moved the black pieces. He turned to look at her. I thought it was Stefano. He denied it. I thought it was a ghost. Lorenzo's eyes narrowed. But the moves, they were brilliant, aggressive, unconventional, grandmaster level. He picked up the black queen. Yesterday before dinner, the black side executed a queen's gambit variation that I have never seen before. It trapped my king in 4 moves. Lorenzo walked back to the bed, holding the chess piece up. You clean the library every day at 4 p.m., Elara. Was it you? Elara swallowed hard. The secret she had kept hidden for so long, the one thing that belonged only to her, was out. I didn't mean to interfere, she whispered. The board, it called to me. The position was unbalanced. It needed to be fixed. Lorenzo looked at her as if he was seeing her for the first time. Not as a maid, not as a victim, but as an equal. Who are you, Elara? He asked intensely. Waitresses don't play chess like Kasparov. Who taught you? Elara looked down at her hands. My father wasn't always a gambler, sir. Before the addiction, before the crash. His name was Victor Vance, the mathematics professor at MIT. Lorenzo's expression didn't change, but his eyes lit up. Victor Vance, the man who had revolutionized game theory before disappearing into obscurity and debt. You're the daughter of the numbers king, Lorenzo murmured. He taught me everything, Elara said softly. Patterns, strategy, probability. He said life is just a game of chess. If you control the center, you control the outcome. And yet, Lorenzo gestured to the room. You are cleaning floors. Strategy doesn't pay the rent when you're blacklisted, she replied with a sudden sharp bitterness. Lorenzo smiled. It was the first time she had seen him smile. It was terrifying and beautiful. Rest, Elara, he said. Tomorrow you don't clean the floors. Tomorrow we play a real game. He turned to leave but stopped at the door. And Elara? Yes, sir. The next person who disrespects you in this house will answer to me. You are no longer the maid. You are the guest of honor. He closed the door. Elara sank back into the pillows, her mind racing. She was warm, she was safe, and her father was safe. But she knew the rules of chess. Lorenzo Moretti had just made his opening move. He had saved her pawn. But now he expected her to help him win the war. The next morning, the Moretti estate was quiet, but the tension in the air was thick enough to choke on. Elara was given clothes, not a uniform, but a cashmere sweater and soft wool trousers that Lorenzo had ordered from a boutique in Manhattan. They fit perfectly. She walked down the grand staircase, feeling like an imposter. The staff, Marco the cook, the other maids, watched her with wide eyes. They didn't speak to her. The barrier had been breached. She was one of them now. She found Lorenzo in the library. He wasn't alone. Stefano was there along with 3 other men Elara recognized as Capos high-ranking captains in the Moretti crime family. They were arguing. "Camilla's father is furious, Lorenzo," Stefano was shouting, slamming his hand on the desk. "He's threatening to block the shipment coming into Newark. That's $50 million in product." "Let him try," Lorenzo said calmly from his desk. He was polishing a handgun with a white cloth. "If he blocks Newark, we burn his warehouses in Jersey. This is war, Lorenzo." "Over a girl," one of the capos shouted. "Is she worth 50 million? Lorenzo looked up. He saw Elara standing in the doorway. "Gentlemen," Lorenzo said, his voice dropping to a silken threat. "We have company." The men turned. Their eyes raked over Elara with a mix of curiosity and hostility. "Come in, Elara," Lorenzo said. He gestured to the chair beside his desk. Not the corner. Beside him. Elara walked forward, her legs shaking, but she forced herself to keep her head up. "Control the center. This is the girl," the capo sneered. "She looks like a stiff breeze would break her." "This is Elara," Lorenzo corrected, "and she is going to solve our problem." The men laughed. "She's going to fight the Rossi family." "No," Lorenzo said. He stood up and walked over to a large map pinned to the wall. It showed the shipping routes of the East Coast. Complex lines of distribution, police patrol zones and rival territories. It was a mess of red and blue markers. "The Rossi family is using a distribution pattern I can't crack," Lorenzo admitted. It was a rare admission of weakness. "They are moving product through our territory, but every time we set an ambush, they are gone. They are ghosting us. It's costing us millions." Lorenzo handed a marker to Elara. "Look at the map, Elara. Tell me what you see." Elara hesitated. She looked at the hardened criminals, then at the map. She took a deep breath and stepped closer. She let her eyes blur slightly, looking not at the specific lines, but at the negative space. The patterns. Her father's voice echoed in her head. "Look for what isn't there, Elara." "Here," she said, pointing to a cluster of red dots near the Hudson River. "And here." "Those are dead zones," Stefano grunted. "Industrial waste sites. No roads." "That's why you're missing them," Elara said, her voice gaining strength. "You're looking for trucks. You're looking for roads." She drew a line connecting the waste sites to the river. "They aren't using trucks. They're using the old drainage tunnels. Look at the timing of the shipments. They always happen at low tide." The room went silent. Stefano walked up to the map. He traced the line she had drawn. His eyes went wide. "Holy Mother of—" Stefano whispered. "The tunnels run right under the checkpoints. That's how they're bypassing us." Lorenzo looked at his captains. "She just saved us $50 million in 5 minutes. Does anyone else have a comment on whether she is worth it?" The captains looked at their feet, ashamed. Lorenzo turned to Elara, a look of fierce pride in his eyes. "Well done." But the victory was short-lived. The library phone rang. Lorenzo answered it. His face went from pride to stone-cold fury in a split second. "When?" he asked. "Is he alive?" He slammed the phone down so hard the plastic cracked. "What is it?" Stefano asked. "Camilla retaliated." Lorenzo said, his voice trembling with rage. "They didn't attack our warehouses. They attacked the nursing home in Queens." Elara felt the blood drain from her body. "My father." Lorenzo looked at her, his eyes filled with a pain that mirrored her own. "They took him, Elara. The Rossi family has your father, and they sent a message." "What message?" she whispered. "They want a trade," Lorenzo said. "They will return your father alive, but only in exchange for you." Elara swayed. Lorenzo caught her before she fell. "I won't let you go," Lorenzo vowed, holding her arms. "We will find him. I promise." "No," Elara said, tears streaming down her face. She pulled away from him. You don't understand. If I don't go, they won't just kill him. They'll make him suffer. He's an old man, Lorenzo. Elara, listen to me. I have to go, she screamed. If you walk into that house, Camilla will kill you, Lorenzo said. She doesn't want a hostage. She wants revenge. Then let her have me, Elara said, her voice dropping to a whisper. She looked up at Lorenzo, her eyes clear and determined. I'm just a pawn, remember? Sometimes you have to sacrifice a pawn to save the king. Lorenzo stared at her. He saw the genius in her eyes, but also the reckless selflessness that had nearly killed her in the snow. You are not a pawn to me, Lorenzo said, his voice rough with emotion. He reached out and touched her cheek. You are the queen, and the queen is the most powerful piece on the board. He turned to his men. Load up, every man, every gun. We aren't making a trade. Lorenzo pulled his gun from the desk and racked the slide. We are going to burn Chicago to the ground. The convoy of black SUVs tore down the interstate toward the outskirts of New York. A funeral procession of steel and bulletproof glass, moving at 100 miles an hour. Inside the lead vehicle, the air was heavy with the smell of gun oil and nervous sweat. Lorenzo sat in the back, checking the magazine of his customized Beretta for the 10th time. Elara sat beside him, wearing a Kevlar vest over her cashmere sweater. She looked small, terrified, but her hands were steady as she stared out the window at the passing blur of snow-covered trees. We are approaching the rendezvous point. Stefano's voice crackled over the radio from the front seat. The old shipyard on the docks, Rossi territory. It's a trap, Elara said quietly. She wasn't asking. She was stating a fact. We know, Lorenzo replied, holstering his weapon. That's why we brought the whole family. No, Elara shook her head, her mind working through the variables like a computer. It's not just a trap. It's a fork. In chess, a fork is when you attack two pieces at once. Camilla isn't just targeting us. She's targeting your home. Lorenzo frowned. My estate is a fortress. I left 20 men there. Camilla knows that, Elara said. She lured you out here with my father, while you're here fighting her soldiers who is watching the back door. Lorenzo's eyes widened. He grabbed the radio. Team B, report status at the estate. Static. Then a garbled voice. Breached. Heavy fire. Inside the walls. The line went dead. Turn around, Lorenzo roared at the driver. No! Elara grabbed his arm. If we turn around, my father dies. If we stay, you lose your home. It's a classic fork. I can't save both, Lorenzo snarled, the veins in his neck bulging. He was the king of New York, and he was being outplayed. Yes, you can, Elara said. Her eyes were sharp, calculating. You go back. Save your home. Save your empire. And leave you. Lorenzo looked at her as if she were insane. Never. I can get my father, Elara said. I know how Camilla thinks. She's arrogant. She expects you to come charging in like a bull. She doesn't expect a mouse. Elara, give me a gun, she interrupted him. And give me Stefano. Lorenzo stared at her for a long, agonizing second. He saw the fire in her. The transformation was complete. The freezing girl in the snow was gone. In her place was a woman made of steel and ice. Stefano, Lorenzo barked. You stay with her. If anything happens to her, do not come back to me alive. Understood, boss, Stefano said, looking grim. Lorenzo grabbed Elara's face in his hands. He kissed her hard and desperate, a promise of violence and devotion. "Survive! That is an order." He jumped out of the SUV, signaling the rest of the convoy to turn back. Elara watched him go, her heart aching, then turned to the driver. "Drive," she said. "Drive into the trap." The shipyard was a graveyard of rusted metal and shipping containers. Snow swirled around the towering cranes, obscuring vision. Elara and Stefano moved through the shadows of a massive dry dock. They could hear voices ahead, shouting laughter. They found them in an old warehouse. In the center of the vast, empty space, Victor Vance was tied to a chair. He looked beaten, his face bruised, but he was alive. Standing over him was Camilla, wearing a white fur coat that looked pristine against the grime of the warehouse. She was flanked by 10 armed guards. "He's not coming," Camilla sneered, kicking Victor's chair. "Your boyfriend abandoned you, old man. He chose his precious house over a washed-up gambler." "Lorenzo is smarter than you," Victor wheezed, spitting blood. "He knows a bad trade when he sees one." "We'll see," Camilla said. She pulled a gold-plated pistol from her coat. "I'll send him your ear first." "Camilla!" The voice rang out, clear and strong. Camilla spun around. Elara stepped out from behind a shipping crate, her hands raised. She was alone. Stefano was nowhere to be seen. "Well, well," Camilla laughed. "The maid returns. Did you come to clean up the blood?" "I came to make a deal," Elara said, walking steadily toward the circle of gunmen. "You have nothing I want," Camilla spat. "I wanted Lorenzo. I wanted to see him bleed. But killing you will be a nice consolation prize." "You don't want to kill me," Elara said calmly. "Because if you do, you'll never find the ledger." Camilla paused. "What ledger? The one I found while cleaning Lorenzo's office?" Elara lied, her voice steady. "The black ledger. The one that lists every corrupt judge, every paid-off politician, and every offshore account the Moretti family owns. I stole it. It's my insurance policy." Camilla's eyes narrowed. That ledger would make her the most powerful woman in the underworld. It was worth more than a marriage alliance. It was worth an empire. "Where is it?" Camilla demanded, stepping closer. "Let my father go," Elara said. "Walk him out of here. When he's safe, I'll take you to it." Camilla studied her. She saw a terrified girl trying to bargain. She didn't see the trap. "Fine," Camilla waved her hand. "Cut him loose. Get him out of here." 2 guards cut Victor's ropes. He stumbled up, looking at Elara with terror. "Elara, no." "Go, Dad," she said, her eyes locking with his. "Go to the car. Run." Victor stumbled toward the exit. The guards let him pass. As soon as he was gone, Camilla turned the gun on Elara. "Now, the ledger." "It's right here," Elara said. She reached into her pocket. The guards tensed. Elara pulled out her hand. It was empty. She smiled. A cold, terrifying smile that looked just like Lorenzo's. "Checkmate." Suddenly, the lights in the warehouse cut out. Pitch blackness engulfed the room. Crack! Boom! A flashbang grenade exploded in the center of the group, blinding everyone. From the rafters above, Stefano and a team of 3 elite snipers opened fire. They had been climbing the catwalks while Elara provided the distraction. The sound was deafening. Muzzle flashes lit up the dark like strobe lights. Camilla screamed, firing wildly into the dark. Elara dropped to the floor, rolling behind a concrete pillar. Bullets chipped the stone inches from her face. "Secure the target!" Stefano yelled over the comms. The firefight lasted 30 seconds. When the emergency lights flickered on, 8 of Camilla's men were down. The rest had scattered, But Camilla was gone. "She ran out the back," Stefano shouted, jumping down from the catwalk. "Elara, stay here." "No." Elara grabbed a discarded pistol from the floor. The weight of it felt heavy, foreign, but necessary. "She's mine." Elara ran out the back exit into the snow. She spotted the white fur coat moving toward the docks. Camilla was limping, trailing blood in the snow. Elara sprinted. She caught up to her at the edge of the pier, where the icy black water of the harbor churned below. "Stop!" Elara screamed, aiming the gun with both hands. Camilla turned. Her face was twisted with hate. She raised her own weapon. "You ruin everything!" Camilla shrieked. "You filthy little rat!" She pulled the trigger. Click. Camilla's gun was empty. She stared at it in horror. Elara didn't fire. She stood there, the wind whipping her hair across her face, the gun steady. "Shoot me," Camilla taunted, backing up toward the edge. "Do it." "You don't have the guts. You're a servant. You exist to serve people like me." "I served you," Elara said quietly. "I froze for you. I bled for you. But I'm done serving." "Then shoot." "No," Elara said. She lowered the gun. Camilla laughed, a manic, high-pitched sound. "I knew it. Weak." "I'm not going to shoot you," Elara said. "Because he is." Camilla froze. She turned around. Emerging from the shadows of the shipping containers, looking like the Grim Reaper himself, was Lorenzo. His suit was torn, his face smeared with soot from the battle at his estate, but his eyes were focused entirely on Camilla. He didn't have a gun. He didn't need one. "You attacked my home," Lorenzo said, his voice carrying over the wind. "You threatened my family." He walked toward her. Camilla backed up until her heels hung over the edge of the pier. "Lorenzo, please," she begged, the arrogance finally breaking. "It was business, just business." "Elara is not business," Lorenzo said. He stopped 3 feet from her. "Elara is personal." He looked at Elara. "Do you want her dead?" It was the ultimate offer of power. The maid held the life of the princess in her hands. Elara looked at the shivering, pathetic woman in the white coat. She remembered the cold. She remembered the insults. "I don't want her dead," Elara said. "I want her to know what it feels like." Lorenzo nodded. He looked at Camilla. "You like the cold, Camilla?" "No, Lorenzo, no." Lorenzo stepped forward and shoved her. Camilla screamed as she fell backward, plunging 20 feet down into the freezing dark waters of the New York harbor. The splash was swallowed by the sound of the waves. Lorenzo walked to the edge and looked down. He watched for a moment, then turned his back. He walked over to Elara. He took the gun from her shaking hands and tossed it into the snow. Then he pulled her into his arms, burying his face in her neck. "You're safe," he whispered. "We won." "My father?" she asked into his chest. "Stefano has him. He's safe." Elara closed her eyes, letting the adrenaline fade, replaced by the warmth of the man who had burned the world down for her. "Let's go home," Lorenzo said. The winter snow had finally melted, revealing the manicured green gardens of the Moretti estate. The ice that had once coated the West Terrace, the place where Elara Vance had almost breathed her last, was gone, replaced by blooming early spring flowers. But the biggest transformation wasn't in the garden. It was in the master suite. Elara stood before the floor-to-length gilded mirror. She ran her hand over the fabric of her gown. It was midnight blue silk, custom-designed in Milan, fitted to hug every curve of her body before cascading to the floor like a waterfall. 2 months ago, She had stood in this room holding a feather duster, afraid to look at her own reflection, because she felt invisible. Now the woman staring back was a stranger. Her hair was swept up in an intricate chignon, revealing the diamond necklace that rested against her collarbone, heavy cold and undeniably powerful. "Are you ready?" Elara turned. Victor Vance stood in the doorway. He looked 10 years younger. The hollow cheeks of his gambling addiction had filled out. His suit was crisp, and his eyes were sharp. He wasn't just a recovered addict. He was now the head financial strategist for the Moretti family. His mind, once wasted on poker tables, was now balancing the books of a billion-dollar empire. "I don't know, Dad," Elara whispered, smoothing her dress. "There are 300 people down there, the heads of the 5 families. They know who I was. They know I scrubbed their floors." Victor walked over and took her hands. "Let them remember. It will make them fear you more. You didn't inherit this power, Elara. You survived for it. You earned it." Elara took a deep breath. "Checkmate." Victor smiled a genuine, proud smile. "Checkmate." The grand ballroom was a sea of black tuxedos and designer dresses. The air buzzed with the low hum of dangerous conversations. This wasn't just a party. It was a summit. The vacuum left by the collapse of the Rossi family had to be filled, and everyone was waiting to see who Lorenzo Moretti would choose as his second. The music stopped. The heavy oak doors at the top of the grand staircase swung open. The room went silent. "Ladies and gentlemen," the announcer's voice boomed, echoing off the vaulted ceiling, "the head of the family, Lorenzo Moretti." Lorenzo stepped onto the landing. He looked devastating in a black velvet tuxedo, his dark hair slicked back, his presence radiating an aura of lethal command. He scanned the room, his eyes cold and unyielding. Then he turned. He didn't walk down. He waited. He extended his hand backward into the shadows of the hallway. Elara stepped into the light. A collective gasp rippled through the room. They had heard the rumors. The Maid of Moretti. The Snow Queen. But seeing her was different. She didn't look like a servant. She held her head high, her gaze sweeping over the crowd with a cool, calculated intelligence that made seasoned hitmen look away. She placed her hand in Lorenzo's. "Do not look down," Lorenzo whispered to her, his voice a low rumble meant only for her. "Look at them. Make them acknowledge you." They began the descent, step by step. As they walked, Elara recognized faces in the crowd. There was the Don of the New Jersey faction, who had once ignored her when she offered him wine. There was the wife of the banker, who had scolded her for a smudge on a glass. Now they didn't scold. They bowed. They reached the bottom of the stairs, and the crowd parted like the Red Sea, creating a wide path to the center of the room. Lorenzo stopped. He signaled for a microphone. "Thank you all for coming," Lorenzo said. His voice was calm, but it carried the weight of a judge passing a sentence. "As you know, the Rossi family has been dissolved. Their territories have been absorbed." He paused, letting the implication sink in. "Many of you have asked how we anticipated their movements, how we outmaneuvered a family twice our size." Lorenzo turned to Elara. He didn't hide her behind him. He stepped to the side, placing her equal to him. "Strategy," Lorenzo said. "Brute force is a hammer. But to build an empire, you need a scalpel. You need a mind that sees the board 10 moves ahead." He placed a hand on the small of Elara's back. "This is Elara Vance. You may remember her as the one who poured your wine. You were wrong. She was the one watching your hands. She is my partner. She is my strategist. And from this night forward, she is the lady of this house. Any disrespect shown to her is a declaration of war against me." The room was so quiet you could hear the ice melting in the glasses. Then Stefano, standing in the front row, began to clap. Then Victor. Then the captains. Slowly the applause spread until the entire room was thundering with it. It wasn't just polite applause. It was the sound of submission. They accepted the new order. Lorenzo handed the microphone away and turned to Elara. The public performance was over. Now it was just them. "You did it," he murmured, brushing a stray lock of hair from her forehead. "You own the room." "I don't care about the room," Elara admitted, her voice trembling slightly now that the adrenaline was fading. She looked up at him, her eyes shining. "I just wanted to know that I belong here, with you." Lorenzo's expression softened, the mask of the Don slipping away, to reveal the man who had desperately rubbed warmth into her frozen limbs on Christmas night. "Elara," he said softly, "look around. You walked these halls when they were cold and empty. You brought life back to this place. You didn't just save my business. You saved me." He pulled a small box from his pocket. He didn't kneel. Kings don't kneel. But he opened it in front of her. Inside wasn't just a diamond. It was a custom ring, the setting designed to look like a queen chess piece, crowned with a massive, flawless blue diamond that matched her dress. "I told you once that the queen is the most powerful piece on the board," Lorenzo said. "Will you be mine?" Tears pricked Elara's eyes. She nodded, unable to speak. Lorenzo slid the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. He leaned in, his lips brushing against her ear. "You know I still have the chessboard set up in the library. It's your move." Elara laughed, a sound of pure, unburdened joy. She grabbed the lapels of his tuxedo and pulled him down for a kiss. It was a kiss that sealed her fate, a promise of a lifetime of battles fought and won together. As they kissed, the snow began to fall outside the window again, light, gentle flakes. But this time, Elara wasn't afraid of the cold. She was in the arms of the fire, and she was finally, truly home. The maid was gone. Long live the queen. And that is the epic conclusion of Elara and Lorenzo's story. From a frozen tragedy to a royal coronation, this story proves that true power isn't about where you start, but how you play the game. I really hope you enjoyed this longer, dramatic finale. I tried to pack as much emotion and detail into this series as possible. If you loved the chemistry between the maid and the Mafia boss, please give this video a huge thumbs up. It really supports the channel and tells me you want more stories like this. What was your favorite part? The chess games, the rescue missions, or the final revenge on Camilla? Let me know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon. Next week, I'm starting a brand new series about a runaway bride who hides in a billionaire's car and finds out he's her ex-boyfriend's rival. You won't want to miss it.